Let me talk to you here now about the House Republicans. The Republicans have now revealed the final changes to the, one big beautiful bill. I'm still hearing stuff in my, thank you, Sarah. One big beautiful bill. It looks like the tweaks are going to be enough to win the support of the holdouts. Medicare work requirements are moved up. The SALT deal stays, incentives for non-expansion states, faster phase-out of energy tax credits for wind, solar, and battery storage, changes in federal pensions, ditching the federal requirement that firearm suppressors must be registered. There's some good things in here, and it's really going to come down to Congress. If they pass this, there is $1.7 trillion in savings. However, the sticking point is Congress can pass this bill, but then Congress has to go back and enact and say, yes, let's start enacting those things. So just passing the bill does not mean that savings is coming until Congress then acts again to say, yeah, what we said in that bill, we mean, and we're going to start it right now. So that's where it gets a little hairy for most people. Also, the no tax on tips passes the Senate unanimously. Then we have Trump talking about leasing or taking the mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which I believe is a public nightmare, honestly. You cannot have the government involved in people's mortgages. They do all kinds of tricks. It's one of the things that helped cause the 2008 crash is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. But Trump says they're now healthy, and he wants to take them public. So get them off of our books. Let other people take the risk in the private sector. Amen. Now, I watched the president yesterday in the Oval Office, and I got to tell you, this guy's the GOAT. I want you to think one thing. We have been trying to find out the truth on what's happening in South Africa. Is there a genocide going on? Well, the first thing that I would tell you, we did a report on this in May 2021, somewhere in that, and we had some evidence that there is some sort of, genocide, if you will. Let's explain that first. Genocide to me is not 6 million Jews. Genocide is a stated purpose of getting rid of any class, any kind of person, any group of people. That's a genocide. We want to wipe you out. Yesterday, a genocide was furthered in Washington, D.C. when they shot the 2 Jews on the street. Why is that a genocide? It was only 2. Because the people who do it are claiming they want to do it to all Jews. Okay? So I think genocide is kind of a mindset. You genocidal maniac. It's a mindset. It's not a number. All right, so we believe that there is, based on that interpretation, that there is a genocide going on. And I'm going to talk to you next hour about how what you're seeing in South Africa is what is coming here. And I don't mean the white thing. I just mean the violence in South Africa is remarkable. So President Trump, because nobody in the media is ever going to say anything about this, they won't cover it. In fact, you're killed if you try to cover it. But T. Beckett Adams, who used to work for the Blaze years ago, he said, I don't know about what's happening, whether the claim of genocide is baseless or not. But I do know the people that insisting that it is baseless said the Hunter laptop, the COVID lab leak, the Biden deterioration were baseless claims as well. So grain of salt with those people. Amen. Thank you. That's exactly right. Now, let me show you what the president did. He has the president of South Africa, Ramaphosa, in his office, and he says, I want to show you, let's talk about what's happening to the white farmers. Now, I said this as I was watching this in real time, and I said this last night on the TV show. He makes one mistake. He said these are grave sites. They're not grave sites. They're not. They're memorials. We see them on the highways. Somebody dies, they put up a little white cross someplace, and somebody had a car accident there. So this is just a memorial that they put together to show the world how many white farmers, are being killed. And so here he has the president of South Africa sitting in the office, and he plays this. Watch.
These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000. Each one of those white things you see is a cross. And there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers. And those cars aren't driving. They're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it. Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President?
Okay.
No, I'd like to know where that is.
So the president is playing, he is short-circuiting the press. You know what? These people say everything is conspiracy theory. I don't know what is. I have the president here. I'm going to ask him. Why not ask him in front of everybody? And the president says, I'd like to know where that is. I know. Well, come on. I've seen that video before for years. I know that video. You're the president. You've never seen that video before. Maybe not. But let me show you another piece of video that the Blaze had on last night on Sarah's show. Do you have the video of this? These are stones that have names carved in them, and it goes on and on and on, and it looks like the Vietnam War Memorial. Okay, those are all names of white farmers. If you're watching the Blaze, just think the Vietnam War Memorial. And they put all these names on these walls, and they just keep going. So, I mean, that's pretty elaborate if this is, fake. What, they're putting all these fake names on granite? Now, what the press is saying, in fact, do we have the audio from, I think it's CNN or NPR? Do we have that audio?
For people who don't have a historical context, it does potentially appear more literal.
It is an inflammatory song, without a doubt. And many in South Africa, even black South Africans, don't think it should be sung in a post-apartheid world, 30 years plus after apartheid. But there are many who grew up under those years of white minority rule who understand the historical context of this song, Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer, that Julius Malema has made popular again. It sort of fell into disuse. It's not been that commonly sung after the end of apartheid in 1994. But it's brought it back again to reanimate the issue of the majority of land in South Africa still being owned by white farmers.
Okay. So that's all they're doing. They're saying kill the Boer, which means kill the whites. It hasn't been sung for a long, long time, but I guess it's okay now. I mean, you know what? The Klan, we didn't have giant cross burnings around the country, but they're trying to make an economic point now. So I think it's pretty okay that the Klan is, what are you talking about? That's insane. You know what that is? That's the New York Times covering, just like they did with Walter Durante on the Holodomor. There's no actual starvation or deaths from starvation, but there is widespread mortality from disease due to malnutrition. That's the New York Times. The excellent harvest about to be gathered shows that the report of a famine in Russia is an exaggeration or malignant page of the New York Times. How about the Holocaust from 1942, the Chicago Daily Tribune. Ready? British section of the World Jewish Congress estimated today more than 1 million Jews have been killed or died as a result of ill treatment in countries dominated by Germany. That was the only paragraph about the final solution. That was it. So please, you have a history of missing these things. Now let me give you some perspective on the other side. Again, I don't know how many people have died. And what they're doing is they're saying, well, there's 19,000 murders or 20,000 murders, every year. Actually, there's 27,000 murders annually in South Africa. Okay, annual murders, 27,000. The annual murders, just to give you some perspective, they have a population of 63 million people. The annual murder rate for our country, a country with 350 million people, is 19,252. So I don't know. there seems to be a bad murder problem happening in South Africa. I don't know how the president even calls this a country. You don't have a government if you have 27,000 murders every year with a population of 63 million. We think our murder population is out of control. We think we've got problems with crime and murder. We have 19,000. They have 27,000. So they barely even have a country. Now, the press is saying, well, only 2,000 of those were the white farmers. Oh, okay. All right. Stu, could you quick ask AI or just look it up yourself if you don't know it already? How many people were lynched in America? Over 100 years. How many people were lynched? I think the number's under 5,000.
I don't know if
is that a problem?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a problem for anybody in the press? Oh, well, there are only 5,000. Let me be crazy. There are only 10,000 people lynched. Oh, okay. Well, then that's not a genocide. That's not a problem there. There are only 2,000 white farmers who were killed and slaughtered. I'm not saying that everybody is engaged in this. I'm saying you have a major political party singing "Kill the Whites," okay? In stadiums, singing "Kill the Whites." Well, you don't understand the historic perspective. You know what? When somebody tells you they're going to kill you, you take them seriously. You have no choice. Now, let me play something else from the leader of the same party. Here is the leader from the same party. I think this was a year or so ago. Let me look it up. This is, nope, this is recent. Here he is, leader of the economic freedom fighters. On this particular, is there a genocide? Are you killing white farmers? Listen to what he says.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying to you, we have not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter, they freak out. It sounds like a genocidal call.
Cry babies. Cry babies.
I'm not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now.
I can't give you a guarantee of the future.
Stop! Do you need to hear any more? I'm not calling for the killing of white people, at least for now. If I got on and said, you know what, I'm not calling for the killing of, Asians, at least not for now, would the press be okay with that? Or would they call me a genocidal maniac? I think we know the answer. And the answer is yes, they would have a problem with it. They'd call me a genocidal maniac, and they would be correct to do that. Do not listen to the press. Do not listen to the press. I can't tell you what the numbers are. I can't tell you how many people are involved in killing whites. I can just tell you there is a major part. Would you accept the Klan? Would America accept the Klan as a major political party that had real political sway, that they said they were singing "Kill the Black Man"? Well, you don't understand it. It's an old-timey Klan song from the 1800s. We don't mean it like they used to. You just have to understand the historic. We're just making a point. Okay? Would they accept that? The answer is no. If they had these big rallies, they were singing the song, and then you went to the head grand wizard or dragon or whatever the hell they are, and the guy said, no, you know what? We are not calling for the killing of black people yet. At least not now. Would the New York Times be okay with that? The answer is no. Racism is a human problem. Here's what's really going on. The reason why they're not saying anything is because those who are calling for the killings of whites are what? They are Marxist, and they are all into the ESG, DEI, anti-racist bullcrap. America, you want to see your future? You're seeing it right now in South Africa. And that should be a frightening thing for non-whites, because remember, there's about 2,000 whites that are farmers that are killed, okay, by these radicals. But the government, with all of their great socialist stuff, They have 27,000 murders a year for 63 million people. Just a reminder again, we have 19,252 murders in the year 2023, the latest one, and that is 350 million people. Do not listen to the press. Back in just a second. First, let me tell you about Relief Factor. Recent studies show that around 54 million Americans have doctor-diagnosed arthritis, which means millions are dealing with joint discomfort. And that is caused, it's a leading cause of pain for, older adults. 70% report joint pain. Nearly half of that say that pain limits their daily life. And back pain, it's even more common, affecting up to 85% of us at some point. It's often tied to inflammation from injuries, overuse, simple age, jogging, aches and pains. Unfortunately, it's part of life, okay? It doesn't mean that you don't go down without a fight. Here's what you can do. Relief Factor is a 100% drug-free supplement designed to help your body fight that inflammation. The same inflammation that may be causing your pain, maybe causing some of your illness as well. It was developed by doctors, backed by scientific research. If you're living with aches and pains, see how Relief Factor, a daily drug-free supplement, can help you live and feel better every day. There's always big pharmaceuticals, and for when it comes to pain, sometimes we need that. But I don't want to live that way. I can't live that way. On narcotics? No, I can't live that way. This is the only thing that I found that has made a dent in my pain. In fact, it broke the back of my pain. Feel the difference. Relief Factor. Get there in 1995, 3-week quick start trial. See if it works for you. 800-4-RELIEF. 800-4-RELIEF. That's relieffactor.com. 10-second station ID. Stu, you have some stats for me?
Yes, you were a very good memory here on the lynching stats. 4,742 total lynchings. However, that is, as you note, broken up between 3,445 African Americans, 1,297 whites were lynched in that period.
Okay, so what does that tell you? During that period, it wasn't just racism, it was also a political party. Because the whites that were killed were the whites that were politically standing up for the rights of blacks. Okay? So it is a political racist movement. By the way, look it up. The Klan was started by the Democrats as an enforcement arm. A little like, let's say, Antifa or Black Lives Matter. Same thing. Oh, no, we're not really. No, aren't you? That's really interesting. All right, we'll have more on that coming up in just a second. We also have Andy McCarthy on with us. He's the National Review contributing editor, former chief assistant U.S. attorney. We're going to talk to him about what is happening with habeas corpus. What is happening with, because there was another ruling again, and other people coming out saying we got to let these people go. They're murderers. They're thieves. We'll talk to him coming up in just a minute.
This is Glenn Beck.
Okay, do you ever wake up in the morning feeling like you actually never really slept? Like you close your eyes, but your brain kept working? Just working and working and working. And your body is telling you something's off because real restorative sleep isn't supposed to be rare. When things are working normally, you should be able to close your eyes at the end of the day and drift off peacefully into restful sleep. That's what your body is designed to do. But if your body is not letting you do that, it's because something else is going on. And let me recommend you can check out Z Factor from the makers of Relief Factor. Z Factor it's not like those sleep. You sleep. Okay, it will reset your body, it will reset your mind, calm you down, prep you for sleep the way you were meant to. So all you have to do is get Z Factor from Relief Factor. Get that deep, regenerative kind of sleep that will help your body heal and your mind recharge. Your mornings will start, maybe you'll be a little less grumpy. 46% savings, $19.95, 30-day supply. It's relieffactor.com, 800-4-RELIEF. That's 800-4-RELIEF.
Get the free email newsletter at glennbeck.com. It's every story we talk about every day. Check it out, glennbeck.com.
Welcome to Thursday, the Glenn Beck Program. Happy to have Andy McCarthy on. Andy is a good friend of the program. He's one of the greatest guys that I know. He's really a good guy. He has great perspective. This time we disagree, I think. He's a National Review contributing editor, a National Review Institute senior fellow, former chief assistant U.S. attorney, and very, very, very knowledgeable. His opinion is very important. Welcome to the program, Andy. How are you?
Glenn, great to be with you. I'm doing great.
Great, thank you. You just released something today about immigration and Donald Trump and the war with the judges, et cetera, et cetera. Let me just get your quick understanding of habeas corpus and why what Trump is doing you think is wrong.
Well, on this particular case, Glenn, I think what he's doing is right. I think it's the judge that overstepped the boundary, and I think the quick way to understand this is to the extent that there is statutory law. Immigration is a plenary responsibility of Congress. All of the president's authority to enforce the law comes from Congress. So to the extent that Congress has defined due process standards and the Supreme Court has established due process principles that apply to things like the Alien Enemies Act, the administration has to follow those. But that is not license for federal judges to make up new due process requirements on the fly.
Right.
The administration has to follow those, and that's what's happened in this Boston case.
So I got to tell you, Andy, I completely misunderstood. I thought you were generally opposed to what the president was doing on immigration. That's not true. I don't have it right.
Well, no, I'm an immigration hawk. I think I was one before the president was. I'm concerned about is that if they don't cross the T's and dot the I's from the due process perspective that's on the books, it's going to undermine the important objective of getting out of the country people who shouldn't be in the United States.
Right. So let me ask you, because I talked about this yesterday, and you're the perfect guy to talk about. For people who say, habeas corpus is important, and it is, I would remind you that in the Constitution it says it can be suspended in cases of invasion, and I think you could make a case that we've been invaded intentionally. China is helping thwart and use the court system and trying to fund people to thwart the effort to get people out. Why is China involved in this? Anyway, but I want to make sure that it is right. What the problem is that we have a court system that is, just gave somebody a court date of 2032. In my opinion, that violates the Sixth Amendment of a speedy trial. That's not a speedy trial. And they're overwhelming the system. Can't the president do something where he can appoint judges, like right at the border or the airports or wherever, or wherever they're deporting, and go, tell me your story. Yep, you're not here illegally. You're, you cross the border, blah blah blah, and you don't qualify for asylum. Maybe you have a case. You stand over here. We'll talk about it a little longer. Isn't there some way to expedite all this and still give the due process, not just a glance and a nod, but an actual chance to work just in a fast way?
Yeah, I think we have our eye kind of on the wrong ball on this, because our immigration laws are excellent, actually, for people who are immigration hawks, and there are expedited processes. The problem, which you alluded to, is that they flooded the system. So, for example, you can't, as a practical matter, get through all the due process steps unless you can stash someone for the few weeks that it takes to get through an immigration hearing before a Justice Department judge, not a Article III judge. an appeal to the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is also the Justice Department, and then a one-shot appeal that they get to a circuit court of appeals, not a district judge, which is limited
habeas
only
corpus,
to legal.
Does habeas corpus allow for all of the I mean, you're supposed to have a fair hearing, not a process like this where you have appeal after appeal after appeal till it ends in the Supreme Court.
Well, a lot
never
of them
get through this.
A lot of them don't go the full appeal. A lot of them just get turned around on the immigration hearing, and a lot of them don't even have the immigration hearing, Glenn. The ones that you're talking about, like right at the border, we find someone, they can be turned around on the basis of a hearing before an immigration officer. The problem we have is not that the system doesn't allow for expedited proceedings, it's that Congress hasn't funded the system. So, for example, we have 20 million illegal aliens in the country. Congress has provided for 46,700 detention spaces. So it's laughable the way they've funded this. You're entirely right. We need immigration judges, immigration officers who can turn these guys around, places where we can stash these people for what could be days or weeks of proceedings, but is not years and years of $1 million trials. That's
right.
Hyperbole.
Right.
All that.
Correct.
We can do all that stuff, but Congress has to identify this as like Congress has to identify this as the most important crisis in the country and fund it accordingly.
Okay, let me switch because I've got so many things to ask you. Nancy Mace, she is saying she's just filed a motion to expel LaMonica McIver of New Jersey, charged with assaulting, impeding, and interfering with law enforcement. The video is, I think, very, very clear on this. Do you think she'll go to jail on this? Should she go to jail on this from what you've seen? And shouldn't she be expelled from Congress? Isn't this a pretty large violation?
Yeah, I think, as far as the equities are concerned, she should be convicted. I don't know if she should go to jail because we have pretty serious crimes in New York and New Jersey that they don't send people to jail over. But she should certainly be convicted. And do I think she rates being kicked out of Congress? Yes. Do I expect Congress to do that? No.
Jeez. All right, let me switch again. Ed Martin has just floated some names of the gatekeepers in Biden's auto pen controversy. He said that he has a source, a well-placed source. Their persons of interest have lawyered up. A whistleblower came forward 10 days ago, apparently, a senior Democrat saying, look, it was these three people that controlled access, and they were making money off of it. Indicated the whistleblower was involved with the 2020 Biden campaign at the highest levels. Again, a Democrat saying this. And they were dominant characters in the White House. They had found some way to make cash off of the auto pen. Is that treason?
Well, it's not treason. I mean, treason is you have to aid enemies of the government or enemies of the United States, and it's got to be done during wartime. But it's a profound fraud on the government. It's certainly, there are a number of prosecutable crimes I could think of, if they can prove these things, that would come out of it. And, whether we call it treason or something else, it's pretty heinous, and it ought to be treated that way.
All right. So let me take you here. Let me take you to the shooting of the two Israelis yesterday. The shooter was Party for Socialism and Liberation, one of the 100 pro-terrorism groups that Ryan Morrow was on this program said that they're going to cause problems. He listed that, I think, about a year and a half ago. They have been this guy's been at the anti-Israel protest, the marching towards violence study that he did. It's a Marxist communist group, and he went and They've been calling for the extermination of Jews. What should be done with this guy?
Well, I think that has to be prosecuted. I assume that the FBI and the Trump Justice Department are going to investigate this as an act of international terrorism and prosecute it accordingly, not just a random or average quotidian murder that we get in Washington, D.C., but this is something that's obviously much more profound. When I say that this is international terrorism, what you usually get back is, well, this is all committed in the United States and it doesn't cross the borders. The case I did in the 90s, Glenn, against the blind sheikh in his cell, which included the World Trade Center bombing, but also included an act very much like this, the murder of Meir Kahane in 1990, the founder of the Jewish Defense League. All of those acts were committed inside the United States, but they obviously transcended international borders as that language is set forth in the statute. So this is clearly international terrorism. I have to say what bothers me the most in reading about this is that the media keeps calling this stuff anti-Israel protests, the rhetoric that animates this. And I would just point out what I've been pointing out for 30 years, which is this is whether these are leftists or leftists who are working with Sharia supremacists, this is anti-Jewish hatred, and it's scripturally rooted. This is pro-Hamas rhetoric. It's not like mere protest against the Netanyahu government, and it goes back to doctrine that says the reason they say, like, from the river to the sea, is this is a war of extermination against Jews under the auspices of the scriptural idea that once territory is controlled by Muslims, it has to be controlled by Muslims for eternity.
So this is something that I talked about when we looked at South Africa just a few minutes ago. I don't care how many were killed. If there's a group saying that we are going to kill all the white farmers, I don't care if it's 2,000 or 1. They are genocidal maniacs. This is something entirely different than just a regular crime. If these people are saying that we have to get rid of all the Jews, so saying they're pro-Hamas or anti-Israel is not going far enough, as you said, the Sharia supremacists that are involved in this. But this was an act of a genocidal maniac who is engaging in his own little version of genocide. Do you agree with that or not?
I do. I think that, look, if they're violent acts that are committed with the intention of either intimidating a civilian population or changing government policy through violence, then that's terrorism.
That's terror.
And it ought to be prosecuted as terrorism.
Andy, thank you so much. Are we, in the last 6 months, do you think we're getting better or worse? I feel like in some ways we're getting better. In some ways, the left has gone so insane. I just feel like we're headed for, I'm not saying it's coming this summer, maybe it will, but like a summer of rage, that the left has gone very, very dark.
I actually think things are better than they were 6 months ago. I haven't agreed with everything the administration's done, but I agree with most of where they want to take the country. And I think that to the extent that the civil rights laws are now going to be interpreted the way they were always meant to be interpreted, because the statutes are written in a neutral way. They're not written just for the protection of Democratic Party interest groups. But if the civil rights laws are going to be enforced in a way that protects all Americans, then we're in a much better place than we were before, even if we're getting hit day after day after day by stories about like an excess here or an excess there. I still think the trajectory of that is good as long as they're going to enforce the laws that way.
Andy, thank you so much. I'm glad I talked to you because I thought you were someplace else than you are, and I'm glad I understand your point of view. Thank you so much, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it.
When you give to preborn, you probably, you're probably not going to see what happens next because you're not going to be there when that nurse just gently squeezes the ultrasound gel onto the frightened young woman's belly. You're not going to hear the hum of the machine as the flickering image comes into focus. You won't see her eyes wide, wet, and locked into the screen as she realizes what's happening really inside of her. Because you can't be there doesn't mean that it doesn't happen and you're not there in spirit. Because of people like you, all of this happens every day. And what follows is nothing short of a miracle, given how terrified this poor woman is of her future. She chooses life. She holds her baby months later, shaking, exhausted, overwhelmed, but smiling. She raises that child, and she has help because of people like you. $28 is a gift that will provide the first ultrasound. You want to give more because these clinics also go on to help the moms for up to 2 years after birth. Get involved. Just dial pound 250. Say the keyword baby. This is real compassion and real answers. Pound 250, keyword baby. Go to preborn.com/Beck. That's preborn.com/Beck. Sponsored by Preborn.
You ever seen a liberal's hands? Smoother than a snake on oil. Guess they're more worried about the meaning of the word female than the word work. Glenn Beck. We'll be right back.
We've talked a lot today about religious persecution. It continues to be one of the most underreported crises, I guess that is, in conflict zones. A new documentary looks at all of this. It's called A Faith Under Siege, Russia's Hidden War on Ukraine's Christians. It brings this issue to light, and it's important for us to look at it, no matter where this violence is happening. It's a region that was once celebrated as the post-Soviet Bible Belt, a big community of evangelical and Protestant believers that have become a prime target under Russia's war. The film documents the harsh reality facing these communities. We're talking about like seized churches and tortured pastors and abducted children. They have all of this on video. I mean, they went there. This is not like, third-hand reporting. They've got all this on video. It's really tough to deal with, but we need to deal with it. Recently featured at the Museum of the Bible, this documentary captures compelling footage and firsthand accounts from the people in these regions. The producers aim to shed light on these stories that often go unreported in mainstream media coverage. You can view this movie yourself, A Faith Under Siege, at faithundersiege.com. Website also has a prayer guide for you. It has a situation where you can get in touch with your elected representatives to talk about this. It's all important stuff, whether you're interested in viewing the documentary or using the prayer resources or using the advocacy tools. All options are available. faithundersiege.com. It's faithundersiege.com.
All right, you sick, twisted freak. Let me tell you, coming up in just a second, I'm going to tell you about gas prices. Some really good news on that as we head into a Memorial Day weekend. By the way, Mission Impossible 3, or Mission Impossible 2, or 9, or 10, whatever it is, the second part of the last Mission Impossible opens this weekend. I cannot wait. We're going to talk a little bit coming up next hour about some of the things that I think are coming when it comes to, I think people going to jail. I think there's some things happening. Also, Kelsey Grammer is coming on today. It's been a long time since we have Kelsey on. He is always a great interview, and he has done something recently that is really quite shocking. I mean, it's one of the most amazing things I have seen or read, and he's going to share it with you coming up on today's program.
This is Glenn Beck.